morning, students. Myself, Hitul Shah from New Alger Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today, we are going to discuss the subject probability and statistics, and our topic of the discussion is the test of hypothesis, or we can say the test of significance for the difference of proportion for the large sample. For testing of this kind of example, how we recognize this method, and that is from the given data. We can say that sample sizes are N1 and N2. Sample proportion is S1 and sample proportion is P1 and P2, and we have to assume population proportion, and that is capital P1 and capital P2. Okay, so first, what we have given the sample sizes N1, N2 and sample proportion P1, P2. With the help of this data, we calculate P, and formula for the calculation of P is P equal to N1 P1 plus N2 P2 upon N1 plus N2, and Q is as usual 1 minus P. Okay, so here let's start the working rule for solution of this kind of example, and the first rule is, as usual, we have to assume null hypothesis H0, right? And that is H0 is equal to P1 equal to P2. What does it mean? Here, the population's proportions are equal. We have to start our null hypothesis with P1 equal to P2, right? Alternative hypothesis HA. So there are three possibilities: either P1 not equal to P2, either P1 greater than P2, or P1 less than P2. So three possibilities are there. Third one, level of significance alpha, that is given. Fourth one is the test statistic, and for the test statistic, formula is Z equal to P1 minus P2. Here is P1 minus P2. These are the sample proportion upon square root of PQ 1 upon N1 plus 1 upon N2. Okay. The fifth one, it is critical value. As usual, we find the critical value with the normal table, and that is Z alpha. And the sixth one is decision. Here, again, the rule is same. If mod Z is less than Z alpha, H0 null hypothesis is accepted. And if mod Z is greater than Z alpha, null hypothesis is rejected. So let's start some example for the detailed understanding. Here, our question is: random sample of 400 men and 600 women were asked whether they would like to have a flyover near their residence. 200 men and 325 women were in favor of the proposal. Test the hypothesis that proportion of men and women in favor of the proposal are same at 5% level of significance. So here we start with our given data, and that is N1 is 400 and N2 is 600. Okay. Now P1. P1 is the proposal, or we can say the proportion of men which are in favor of the flyover, and that is 200 by 400, and it is 0.5. Same P2, it is the proportion of women, right, which are in favor of the flyover, that is 325 upon 600, and it is 0.541. Now, as per the rule, for the P, N1 P1 plus N2 P2 upon N1 plus N2. If we substitute all values in this formula and calculate, my value of P is 0.525, and for the Q, 1 minus P, and that is 0.475, right? Now, we write down here all the given data, and with the help of the given data, first we find out the value of P and Q. So let's move for the further procedure, and that is number 1, as per the working rule. Number 1, null hypothesis, that is H naught. And what is the null hypothesis? Null hypothesis is P1 equal to P2. It means there is no significant difference in the proportion of men and women in favor of flyover, right? So here there is no significance difference of men and women in favor of flyover. Number 2, that is the alternative hypothesis, and alternative hypothesis is the complementary of null hypothesis, and that is, as per the rule here, P1 not equal to P2. As P1 not equal to P2, so two-tailed test is there. Okay. Now, third is level of significance. Alpha. So, number 4, that is test statistic. And as per the test statistic, Z is equal to P1 minus P2 upon square root of PQ 1 upon N1 plus 1 upon N2. And after substituting all values in this formula, we get minus 1.28. So modulus of Z is 1.28. Fifth one, that is critical value. Critical value is Z alpha, and that is Z 0.05. It is 1.96. And the last step, decision. If we compare the critical value with the test statistic, here mod Z is less than Z alpha, Therefore, as per the rule, the null hypothesis is rejected. As the null is accepted. Less than is there, right? Accepted. As the null hypothesis is accepted, it means there is no significant difference. There is no significance difference of men and women in favor of flyover. Okay, let's move for one more example, students. Here, before an increase in excise duty on tea, 800 people out of a sample of 1,000 were consumer of tea. And after an increase in excise duty, 800 people were consumer of tea in a sample of 1,200 persons. Find whether there is a significant decrease in the consumption of tea after increase in duty. So, as here from the given data, there are two samples before increase in excise duty, the consumer of tea, and after increase in excise duty of consumer of tea. So N1 is 1,000 and N2 is 1,200. P1 is the proportion of consumer of tea before excise duty, before increase in excise duty, right? And that is 800 by 1,000, so that is 0.8. And similarly, P2, that is the proportion of the consumer of tea after increase in excise duty, and that is 800 by 1,200, and that is 0.67. Okay, now as we did in the previous example, let's calculate P, that is N1 P1 plus N2 P2 upon N1 plus N2. After substituting all these values in this formula, we get the value of P, that is 0.73, and Q is 1 minus P, that is 0.27. Okay, so let's move for the further procedure. And number 1, that is null hypothesis. Null hypothesis H naught, and that is P1 equal to P2. Here, the meaning of the P1 equal to P2 is there is no significant difference in the proportion of the male consumer of tea before increase in excise duty and after increase in excise duty. Number 2, alternate hypothesis is P1 not equal to P2. So two-tailed test is there. Third one is the level of significance. Alpha, and that is 0.05. Fourth one, test statistic. Z is equal to P1 minus P2 upon square root of PQ 1 upon N1 plus 1 upon N2, and that is 6.84. So if we simplify after substituting all the value in this formula, we'll get the value of Z, that is 6.84. So mod Z is 6.84, right? Now the fifth rule, and that is critical value. Critical value is Z alpha. So Z at 0.05, and that is 1.645. Okay, so null hypothesis H naught, and that is P1 equal to P2. It means, as per the previous example, there is no significant difference between the consumer of tea before increase in excise duty and after increase in excise duty. Now, the alternative hypothesis, that is HA. Here, we have to check that, see, find whether there is a significant decrease in the consumption of tea after increasing duty. It means my alternative hypothesis is P1 is greater than P2. There is a significant decrease. So here, right tail test. Okay. Now the third one is level of significance. Level of significance, that is alpha, and here 0.05. The next one is test statistic. For the test statistic, Z is equal to P1 minus P2 upon square root of PQ, the bracket 1 upon N1 plus 1 upon N2. So after substituting all values in this formula and after simplification, we get our answer is 6.84. So our mod Z is also 6.84. Okay, the fifth one is critical value. As per the critical value, Z alpha, Z 0.05, and that is 1.645. So decision mod Z is greater than Z alpha. Therefore, the null hypothesis is rejected. It means the consumer of tea is decreased after increase in excise duty. On tea. Okay, so these are the example for the difference of the proportion for the last sample test. So feel free to contact me for any query. Till that, enjoy the study. Thank you.